Imagine two people standing at the same busy intersection. One swears the city is loud, chaotic, and hostile. The other notices the rhythm in the footsteps, the small patch of light on a storefront, the laugh of a child across the street. They are not standing in different cities. They are sampling different slices of the same sensory stream. The simple difference between them is where their attention points and how finely it listens. Many modern spiritual teachers put this idea in poetic language: raise your vibration, tune your frequency, align with higher states. Tonight we will take those phrases seriously, but as tools rather than as metaphysical claims. We will treat raising vibration as a practical form of attention training, a way of biasing what your nervous system prioritizes, of increasing the salience of subtle bodily signals so the brain includes them when forming models of the world. We will explore the science behind that shift, and we will practice a gentle breath and tone technique that you can use again and again. Finally, we will close with a simple journaling method so you turn immediate feeling into reliable data. Before we start, a short safety note. If you have a history of severe trauma, psychosis, bipolar disorder, or current severe psychiatric conditions, please consult a clinician before doing tone-based or inward-focusing practices. Some people report intense emotions when attention is pulled inward. If that happens, stop, ground with slow breathing, and seek support. A brief written safety note will be included with the video description. So what do we mean by attention calibration? In cognitive neuroscience, perception is not a passive recording of the world. The brain constantly generates predictions about incoming sensation and samples the world to confirm or correct those predictions. This predictive processing framework describes perception as an active, inferential operation. The brain gives priority, or precision, to certain signals and downweights others. By deliberately directing attention to particular signals, for example, your heartbeat, a breath sensation, or the vibration in your throat when you hum, you increase the precision of those signals. The result is that those signals carry more weight in the brain's ongoing model of what's happening. In other words, by changing where you place your attention, you change what the brain treats as important data. Friston, 2005. Seth, 2013. Why should this matter for something like raising vibration? Because the metaphors people use in spiritual traditions often point to a functional effect. People who report feeling higher or lighter generally perceive different aspects of experience than they did before. They notice more subtle pleasures, quieter reactions, or a different balance between thought and sensation. From a scientific point of view, those reports are consistent with a change in sampling priorities, a recalibration of attention that lets interoceptive signals, sensations from inside the body, and low-amplitude stimuli register more readily in conscious experience. Seth, 2013. Lutz et al., 2008. Attention training that emphasizes interoception, the sensing of internal bodily states, has measurable effects on how people process emotion and sensory information. Practices that increase interoceptive awareness can strengthen the neural circuits that represent bodily signals, most notably areas like the insula that integrate bodily feeling into higher cognition. That makes it practical, not mystical. A repeated habit of listening to bodily tone and breath reshapes inputs and the relative confidence the brain assigns to them. Over time, those changes become part of the brain's predictive model and thus influence everyday perception and reactivity. Lutz et al., 2008, Tang et al., 2015. Let me be clear about what the science does and does not say. The models I'll reference are theoretical frameworks with empirical support in laboratory settings. They explain mechanisms plausibly involved in attention and interoception. They do not prove metaphysical claims about invisible energies. When teachers say raise your vibration, they are often offering a practical shorthand for changing attention and attitude. That shorthand can be useful, and we will treat it as such, while being explicit about the measurable psychological mechanisms at work. Now, practice. The exercise I'll guide you through is simple, intentionally brief, and repeatable. It is designed to bias your attention toward bodily resonance by coupling breath with a soft tonal probe. The tone is not magic, it's a gentle way of creating a consistent internal event the nervous system can sample. Repeating the tone while attending to bodily resonance increases the precision of those sensations and helps the brain recalibrate what it considers important. Find a comfortable, stable posture. Sit or lie with a straight but relaxed spine. Keep a journal and a pen nearby. If you prefer not to hum, you may use a long, soft exhale instead. If tone makes you uncomfortable for any reason, skip the hum and focus on the breath alone. Begin by taking 2 slow, grounding breaths. Breathe in gently through the nose and exhale softly through the mouth. Let your shoulders drop. Let your face unfurl. Notice, without trying to change it, the natural shape of your breathing. Bring attention now to the physical sensations of breathing, the coolness of air at the nostrils, the subtle lift in the belly or chest, the tiny expansion of the ribs. Do not force anything, your job is to notice. If your mind wanders, simply note that it wandered and return to the breath with gentle curiosity. On the next exhale, make a soft hum. Use an MMM or a low vowel that feels natural. Keep the sound comfortable, not loud, not strained, just audible to you. Continue a gentle cycle, about 4 to 6 seconds for the exhale with hum, then a quiet inhale of 3 to 4 seconds. Maintain a steady, kind rhythm. As you hum, rest your attention on the bodily resonance produced by the sound. Notice where you feel vibration, in the chest, throat, sinuses, or teeth. Notice the texture of that sensation. Is it warm, tingling, buzzing, or subtle? Let the sensation be the object of your attention. Treat each hum as a probe that reveals something about the body's current state. If your attention drifts, which it will, bring it back without judgment. Each return is itself an act of training. Over successive hums you may notice subtle changes, a softening in the throat, a widening of the chest, a spreading warmth in the belly. Or you may notice nothing dramatic, that is useful data too. Continue this hum and breath cycle for about 3 minutes. If you want to time it, set a gentle timer on your device, otherwise, approximate. The duration is intentionally short. The goal is to provide repeated, high-quality samples the brain can use, not to induce trance. When you finish the tone sequence, let the hum fade and breathe normally for 2 full cycles. Rest your hands on your lap or knees. Feel the weight of your body and the support beneath you. Notice sounds in the room. Notice the texture of the air on your skin. This reorientation helps the nervous system integrate the shift in attention. Now take a moment to notice any immediate change in perception. Maybe external sounds feel a bit softer or brighter. Maybe your heartbeat feels clearer. Maybe there's a slight shift in mood, calmer, lighter, or simply different. Name that shift to yourself in a single short phrase. If you notice nothing, name that fact, no immediate change. Naming transforms raw sensation into a piece of recordable data. Open your journal and write just 1 line. Record the practice and the most salient shift. For example, 3-min hum practice, chest warmth, street sounds seemed softer. If nothing changed, write no immediate change. The point is to convert subjective impressions into repeatable entries so you can track patterns over time. Why this small habit can compound into larger changes. When you regularly bias attention toward interoceptive signals, the brain learns that those signals are useful. They gain weight in the predictive model. That means when a similar situation arises, stress, decision moments, social triggers, the brain will be more likely to draw on these interoceptive cues as part of its inference process. Practically, that often translates into small but meaningful shifts: earlier detection of rising agitation, more subtle awareness of fatigue or relaxation, clearer access to internal cues that guide wise action. Seth, 2013, Lutz et al., 2008. There are also autonomic effects to consider. Breath patterns and sustained vocalization can influence the parasympathetic nervous system, particularly vagal tone, which regulates heart rate variability and supports regulatory flexibility. Practices that lengthen exhalation relative to inhalation and that induce a gentle, resonant vocalization tend to support a calmer physiology. This is one pathway through which short breath and tone practices produce reliably noticeable calm in many people. Schaefer and Ginsberg, 2017. If you decide to practice this method over days or weeks, a simple protocol increases your chance of seeing consistent results. Try doing the 3-minute practice twice daily, once in the morning and once before bed, for 7 days. Each time, record the one most noticeable change in your journal. After 7 sessions, review the entries for patterns. Do you notice fewer spikes of irritability? Better sleep? More clarity in small decisions? Those patterns are the real signal, not any single epoch of feeling good or neutral. A word about expectations and placebo effects. Expecting change can itself shape experience. That is not a weakness of the method, it is a feature. Expectancy effects are well documented in psychology. When people expect an intervention will help them, they often notice improvements. In our context, a constructive expectancy combined with concrete practice and small behavioral experiments, like acting on an implementation intention, makes change more likely. The ethical way to use expectation is to frame it as a tool, expect modest shifts, measure honestly, and adjust the experiment if the results do not appear. You may wonder how this practice differs from other meditative methods. 2 things stand out. First, tone provides a repeatable, salient internal event that is easy for the nervous system to sample. It creates consistency. Second, the explicit coupling of tone, breath, and brief journaling turns subjective sensation into a simple experiment. The goal is not to achieve a certain state forever, but to reliably bias sampling long enough for the brain to incorporate new inputs into its predictions. Troubleshooting. Some people report getting more emotionally stirred during these sessions. That is not uncommon. Tuning inward can bring pre-existing material into awareness. If that occurs, pause the practice, ground with 5 slow breaths, and do a brief grounding exercise. Name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you hear, 2 smells you notice, and 1 thing about the present moment. If strong distress continues, consult a qualified clinician. Another common question: what if I cannot hum or the tone tickles my sinuses? You can use a long, soft exhale without sound. The crucial element is steady, attentive sampling of interoceptive resonance in synchrony with breath. The tone is a helpful amplifier but not an absolute requirement. Let's place a few of these practical points in a slightly broader habit framework. If your aim is to raise vibration in a way that supports real-world function, combine this micro-practice with tiny, measurable actions that test the changes you hope for. For example, if your aim is reduced reactivity, pair the morning practice with 1 concrete behavioral test during the day. When triggered, pause for 10 seconds and notice bodily signals before responding. Record whether the pause changed your response. Over weeks, you will generate a data set of small experiments that can confirm or disconfirm your subjective impressions. It helps to keep expectations modest and process-oriented. Radical transformation can happen, but more often change follows a series of small recalibrations, little more bodily sensitivity, a slightly different selection of sensory input, a marginally improved choice at a stressful moment. Those increments accumulate into altered habit and disposition. Finally, let's speak briefly about language. If you prefer metaphors like vibration, keep using them. They are evocative and useful. But pairing those metaphors with mechanism keeps the practice credible to skeptical listeners and safer for novices. When you say raise your vibration, follow with a sentence like, by that I mean, increase attention to bodily signals so your brain uses them more when predicting and responding. That translation preserves the poetic power while enabling scientific conversation. To close, here is a short 7-day starter you can copy into your journal. Day 1 to 7, twice daily, 3 minutes each session. Session, 3-minute breath and tone, soft hum on exhale, attentive to bodily resonance. Immediately after, one short sentence in your journal describing the practice and the most noticeable shift. Daily test, one real-world pause when triggered. Note whether the pause changed your response. At the end of 7 days, review entries and note any patterns. If you want, repeat the experiment with small changes, longer practice, different time of day, or an added grounding routine. If you found this useful, consider making a small public commitment. Try the 7-day starter and leave one sentence in the comments each day, session time and one observation. That kind of small accountability builds habit without pressure and creates useful shared data. A final reminder, these practices are low risk for many people but not risk-free for all. If you experience destabilizing material, stop and seek guidance. If you want source references for the scientific claims I mentioned, you can find core readings below. I have kept them to accessible review articles and open access papers so you can read the mechanisms in full. Thank you for practicing this attentional calibration. Remember, it is not magic, it is method. A shift in what you notice shifts what you become able to notice, and over time those shifts can change how you move through the world. References, select. Friston, K. 2005. A Theory of Cortical Responses. Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society B. https://doi.org/1098/rsdb.2005.1622 Seth, A. K. 2013. Interoceptive Inference, Emotion, and the Embodied Self. Trends in Cognitive Sciences. https://doi.org/1016/j.tix.2013.09.007 Lutz, A. Slagter, H. A. Dunn, J. D. and Davidson, Art J. 2008. Attention Regulation and Monitoring in Meditation. Trends in Cognitive Sciences. https://doi.org/1016/j.tix.2008.01.005 Tang, Y.Y, Holzel, B. K. and Posner, M. I. 2015. The Neuroscience of Mindfulness Meditation. Nature Reviews Neuroscience. https://doi.org/10.1038/NRN3916 Schaefer, F. and Ginsberg, J. P. 2017. An overview of heart rate variability metrics and norms. Frontiers in Public Health. https://doi.org/103389/FPUBH.2017.00258 Lindahl, J. R. et al., 2017. The Varieties of Contemplative Experience, a Mixed Methods Study of Meditation-Related Challenges in Western Buddhists. PLOS 1. https://doi.org/10.10137/journal.poem.0176235